All right, so where we were was we had started adding the WordPress functions to our theme, right? In terms of blog info, style sheet URL, template directory to then look into the themes folder, right? We didn't use blog info name at this point in time, but we used blog info description. So let's go and then use blog info name really quickly and show you what that does. So in our we used in our title tag blog info description, which if we look at our proto site then, and we look at the page source, that then wrote the tagline, right, of our site. So if I were to then log in, and go to settings, then this then is the site title here, or the site name. So if we looked at, then let's say this website that you've never seen before. You guys seen this one? Under settings, general, site title, Premium Design Works. You see the site title then appear. Tagline, logo design, print design, web design, development. So if I visit sites, then in the title tag, logo design, print design, web design, and development, Premium Design Works, Seattle, Washington, which is then generated using something that we will use later on. So in my functions, this is where I'm starting to use, or we are going to use conditionals. If is front page, blog info description, else if is page, title, blog info name, down here, okay? So this is where we can, if we wanted to, instead of having my personal name there, right, it would be then blog info name. So now if I save that by hitting Control S, and I can't save it by hitting Control S, now if I refresh this, then it should say Web170 WordPress demo Web170 summer 17, right? So these two pieces then are being called from these two fields. Make sense? All right. We went into the body class. Any questions on that? WP head function? WP footer function? Now what we need to do you guys have any questions on WP head and WP footer? Do you guys even remember what they were?
I remember my question was why did putting the header thing in change my margin space?
So again, if you, what you may be experiencing is this. If I comment out the WP footer function, right? Whoops.
So should I
Okay.
PVC?
Just hold on, just watch what's going on. So if I comment out the WP footer function and go back to view my site, this is where I get that up there. This is what you were experiencing, correct?
No.
Okay.
No, see, this is what I'm experiencing. What is, why?
There's a conflicting style.
Okay.
Let's just say it like that. So what's happening here with this is that it has made room for the admin bar, but it has not placed the admin bar in there just yet, okay? Because the admin bar then gets placed in there with the WP footer function, okay?
Still.
So do you then, you have the WP footer function in there now? Okay, so is this admin bar showing up?
Mm-hmm.
It is?
It should be. It was showing yesterday.
Are you logged into the site?
Yes, I'm logged in.
Okay, turn your computer towards me. There you go, yeah. So
Still.
it's just CSS that you're gonna have to figure out the CSS and adjust it.
Yeah, it's not pulling CSS from anything else though. There's like no CSS counterpart that has a margin or padding.
Right, but what I'm saying is something is conflicting somehow. Like it might be that there's stuff floated in the admin bar. What I'm saying is you're gonna have to just inspect it, see what's happening and just adjust it somehow.
That's what I'm doing. I'll pick your brain later.
Yeah, it's a CSS something or other that we can find.
I know that. I just,
Is there anything in WordPress, Mike, that would potentially, like, because WordPress kind of has its own framework, essentially. Is there anything in a file that could conflict?
Possibly, you know, it might be that you have some classes or IDs that are identical to an admin class or an ID that That's what I'm saying. Like there's got to be some conflicting style of some sort, right? Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to put the loop into our site. Okay, so what is the loop? Well, again, if we have hand coded in all this content, right? We are no longer going to be hand coding content into a website. That's what a content management system is for, right? In other words, wherever we are then in our site, and right now we don't have a working navigation structure to pull from yet, but let's say that so again, here is what might happen to you guys, right? Again, if you click on your about menu, right? Your about menu item, and it says main.html, or it says something here, and you're like, nothing's showing up. Why is nothing showing up? Well, what's actually happening here is that you're getting a 404 error, and we don't have any messaging for the 404 errors, okay? So we'll take care of that. We'll show you that in a second. So, but let's say if I went to and just typed in the slug, right? So if I go to edit page here, the permalink, the slug, is about, okay? So viewing this page, right? There's no content in here. So one would expect now that, well, Mike, why isn't it showing me the content from the text editor here? Who can answer that for me? Who doesn't like playing this game? Who wants me to just answer it for you?
Mike, just answer it.
Just answer it for you. It's because we don't have the loop in there. Okay, so what is the loop? Well, the loop is PHP code used by WordPress to display posts or content from the post or page editor here. Okay. So the loop basically is kind of like a standard loop, right? While, let's just go start typing it out, discussing it, okay? So this is where then, if this is where we want our content to start showing up, okay? We will need to use functions like the content to get the written page content, meaning this function right here is the function that pulls stuff out of this text editor right here, okay? But in order to do that, we need to write that function within the loop. So that might be a concept that you're like, well, I don't get it, right? Let's just say it like this. This is where we have to say, if posts. Now, I'm writing it out the long way, and I'll show you how to shorten it up. But all of you are probably familiar with this syntax right here, right? The if, brackets, brackets. Do you guys know this other syntax? Well, let's just keep going, and I'll talk to you about it. Wow. Have posts. Post. Okay. So this sets up then the loop to run. Okay. And this is where then I can say, wow. So if there are postings to show, or if there's content to show, while there is content to show, set up showing the content. But we're not talking about what specific content to show here right now. Okay. So this is where then, if we left it like that, and we viewed page, we're still not getting anything. Okay. If we then said, content, this is where now the content function has pulled things from the editor. And you can see that there's some kind of something going on here. I don't care about it, right? Yeah. Holy moly, right? And so here is an example of a traditional way of writing an if, while statement, right? But here's the thing with WordPress. Well, let's do one more little statement here, right? If, while, else. Trying to figure out a message to write. 404 not found. Okay, so this is where if there are postings, while there are postings, show the posting, and then, or go get the post data, then show me through functionality specific pieces of the post data, right? Else, .404 not found. So this is where, if we go back here and remember how I said, well, what if I click actually on one of these links that sends me to another file, right? So this is right here now saying, because I've clicked on one of these links here, right? It's trying to load this page that it's not finding. So the loop is saying now, giving me a message, 404 not found error. Okay, make sense? Okay, we're going to change it though.
Oh.
Just be aware that we're going to change it. So there are other functions then that we can use within this while statement here, or this while bracket, while loop, whatever. So this is where we could also say title. Okay, so now it's giving me the title of the page. We can also use things like permalink. Which will give me the link to this page. Why would I want to have the link to this page in there? Why don't I just tell you? If we're on the home page now, take a look what's happening. The home page currently right now is the blog feed page, correct? Okay, so it is then showing the title of this posting with a link to that posting. The title of this posting with a link to that posting. Okay, so here's what I'm saying, Gracie. I could do something like this. Right? That makes sense to you guys. Who can read that? In other words, when we are writing out HTML, we can use an echo statement to write out HTML, and then if we need to grab a PHP function or a variable or a whatever, right, then we can concatenate and use that. Make sense? So if we save this now, what we should get is this headline here that has a link to the posting. Hold on, I made a mistake. Well, here's what I'm saying. I'm not finding the mistake right off the bat. Let's see. H2, the permalink. Let's see. Let's do this. Hold on. X. That's where it is. See? Proving my point, readability for functions like this is pretty poor, right?
So you got rid of the permalink?
Well, it's back now, because what I was missing was this, the closing A, the closing caret of the opening A tag. Okay. So now if I save this, yeah, I've got some errors in here somewhere. H2, well, here's what I'm saying. Rather than battle trying to figure out where my errors are right now, because doing this kind of stuff, especially when you are using double and single quotes like this, right? You're going to run into problems. Are you spotting the error, Jonathan?
No.
Okay. I may, right? And here's what I'm saying. So instead of using the brackets like this, it's better to use this methodology. Hold on. Who's ever seen doing it this way? If, end if, while, end while. Who's ever seen it done like that? No? This is the way that is better for readability in WordPress. Okay? This is called using the property of, or using the style of escapement, where then if I want to write out then an H2 tag, right, that I want to then have inside there okay. Does this make sense? So now I can, how many of you have ever opened a PHP script, started something, closed the PHP script, ran wrote some HTML, opened up another PHP script, used some PHP functionality, closed it, opened up some HTML, right? How many of you ever used this style before? Where you can open a PHP script and close it even though the script isn't done. Run it. Does that make sense? Okay. So here now, if I do this and save, right? Now we have the headline with an anchor tag around it, but notice that the anchor tag doesn't go anywhere. Okay. So if in here then, I said permalink, save. Now, because we're on the blog feed page, right, the content is spitting out each posting, right? If now I click on this headline, it will go to that individual posting. Okay? See where it says index.php over there? I should move that. Index.php. Okay. So right now, because we're using index.php, right, no matter where we are in the site, whether we're on the home page, whether we are on a posting, whether we are on a regular page, we are accessing the same template file here. Okay? Index.php. So this is where then, if we wanted to customize this more, and in other words, do I on this single posting here, right? Again, we're on a single posting. Do I still want this headline linked to this posting? What purpose does that serve? Other than, how do you keep an idiot busy? Remember that GIF? And he totally deleted his posting. I told you about that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so what purpose does that serve? None. So this is where then I could do one of two things. I could then start writing conditionals saying, if we're on this page, do this. If we're on that page, do this. Or once we get our template here, our solid file together, we can then chop this up into the files. And if we're on a single posting, it will use single. If we're on a page, it will use page. And we can then write in what we're trying to do. Does that make sense? Kinda? It may or may not make total sense right now. Okay? But the long and the short of it is to grab content out of a posting or a page, given if it's the title, if it's the text here, if it's the category, if it's the excerpt, whatever, right? So the function of the post here goes and accesses for the post ID, get the permalink, get the title, get the content. Does that make sense? It may or may not make total sense to you right now, okay? All right. That is the start now of converting your template into a theme. Next on the agenda, creating a navigation schema. Okay. Is this starting to make sense to you, Gracie?
Yeah, it's working now, but
Okay.
now everything, like all of my divs and stuff are not working.
Yeah.
It's screwing with my CSS now.
Yeah, and that's the thing that everybody hates me for.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, you broke my site.
It's killing it.
What's my answer, Jonathan?
Figure it out.
He said. Yeah.
Yeah.
In other words,
It's mine.
in other words, you're going to have content that is probably going to break because WordPress wants to do things one way, and you've statically designed it and used styles another way.
Yeah, because it's canceling out my divs, and so now everything that has a div, it's just inheriting properties for the body, and so I don't know how to fix that. I keep assigning new div names, and it's not doing anything. I don't know if I need to assign it as a class.
Well, we'll take a look
Yeah.
and see what's happening. Okay. So what we just did was we looked at the loop. This is where WordPress says, are there postings to show? There are. Great. Then while there are postings to be shown, I will show the contents of them. Seriously, WordPress can talk like that. Don't question, just believe. Then WordPress will want to show some specific parts of the posting. The title, the permalink, the content, okay? So on and so forth. Let's now go to creating navigation and menu system. So this is where now we have set up our page tree, okay? But currently we have not hold on, I'm just checking this lecture. Yeah, because this one, we might just get through half of this lecture today and then get into the rest of it because I want you guys to have some lab time. Okay. We'll do the main navigation and we'll do the sub navigation on Monday. Okay. But what we need to do now is we need to replace this navigation structure with a dynamic function that then pulls oh, where did our menu go? How come I can't access my menu? Would you like me to just tell you the answer, Jonathan?
Yeah, as much as I really want to figure it out.
We haven't registered any menus. We have not told our theme to use the menu system. I know, it's kind of weird.
Is that so that if there are more than one menu? Is that so that we could use more than one menu? in
System,
different
yes.
things?
Yeah, yeah.
I just answered my question.
So what we need to do first is open up our functions file. And this is where we can then register our navigational menus, which I should have opened that in a new tab. Sorry.
So the menu, Mike, that we created just in our, like, for the assignment that's due this week, that basically, is this gonna override that, or is it just?
No, this is going to access that,
Okay,
right? Because right now, right, in our template,
we don't have anything called.
we have, in other words, here's what I'm going to do. This is the static menu system right here, okay? I want to replace this with a dynamic menu system that pulls the menu that we set up in the WordPress dashboard. Okay? So, first, in the functions file, we need to say and I'm just using comments a lot. So I'm going to register menus. What I typically do is I do an opening and a closing comment, like a begin and an end comment, like I do in HTML, right? And I'm going to say, register nav menus. Notice I'm using plural. Okay. I could just say register nav menu because we've only set one up. However, I can register more than one menu. So this is where in my business site, I have main menu and footer menu, okay? So if I go to appearance menus, this is where I have two locations, main menu and footer menu, okay? Main menu, footer menu. Name, slug. Name, slug. Okay? theme location, right? So basically, this is going to be the confusing part to you. You are setting up a menu and assigning it to a location. I have set up a menu, main menu. It is assigned to a location that I will access in my code. You'll see what I mean. So I'm going to say register nav menus. And this is where I'm going to say, hooray! Okay. And I'm going to say, the slug location is main-menu. Okay. And I haven't written one way in my notes, and I'm going to write it a different way here. Let's see if it works. Well, we have to write this code in here to have it show up. So now if I'm here and I refresh, because I've registered that menu, I should see menus now in my appearance menu. And if I click on menus, I should see this location of main menu, which I can select my main menu to occupy the location of main menu. I know. Okay, so first off is registering it like that. Now what we need to do is use that here in our theme. This is where we are going to use it's a good idea to get used to commenting stuff out like this. So this is where I could then say, use the function WPNavMenu. Okay. And if I don't pass any arguments through it, it should just try to find the first menu in the system and display it, from what I remember. Okay. So it is finding the first menu in the system and saying, oh, great, here's that menu. that you set up about portfolio, print, logos, websites, block contact. Okay? But notice, or let's ask this. Jonathan, let's see if you can get this right.
Good luck.
This might explain some things to you, Grace. Why does it look like that?
With the giant gap between, or the menu on the left there.
Yeah.
which
Why
I
doesn't
can
it look like it
barely
used to?
see.
Huh?
Which I can barely see.
Right. Why doesn't it look like it used to?
I would guess that there's some CSS interference somewhere.
We don't have CSS set up for that.
Here's what I'm saying. Correct. WordPress will kick out the CSS that it wants to.
Yeah.
Okay? So what you're going to constantly have to do, Gracie, is battle the WordPress is now kicking out these CSS ID and class names. Okay? And I'm going to try to find those CSS IDs and class names and adjust them in my CSS file. Use those CSS IDs and class names. Or when I can and when it is appropriate, tell WordPress to use CSS class names and IDs that I want it to use. Okay? So you're going to have to play that game a lot, where this is an example of, Mike, why did you break my site, you bastard? Right? So because I just put in that function and didn't give it any more directions, it is writing div class menu main menu container ul ID main menu or menu main menu class menu, so on and so forth. Where in my CSS file, so if I turn this one back on, here's my old menu system. Inspect, div ID navigation, ul ID navigation items, right? So my styles that I'm using basically use div ID of navigation as their primary focal point to create and write CSS. Okay? So what I need to do then is I want to use this ID of navigation and this containing div tag here. Again, I'm going to turn this one off. So in this WPNavMenu function, then, I can start passing arguments in an array structure, an associative array structure, where I can say container, or I can say theme location. So let's start with theme location. Hooray! Notice I'm going to use the slug here. Because this is an associative array. Okay? You may see associative arrays written like this. Does that make sense? Container. Div. Container ID. Navigation. So this is where then now that I have told it to use theme location main menu, div container div, container ID, navigation, now it has written the proper ID that I want to use in there. Okay, so again, if I wrote container ID and used a different name, right? It's broken again because the ID that I used beforehand was navigation. Now I'm not going to worry about this right here, but take a look at this as well. UL class subnavigation. Okay. This is where, again, I cannot, because it's a subnavigation item, there's no argument to put in whatever class name you want to there. Okay. Instead, this is an instance where I'm going to have to adjust my CSS file according to the label that WordPress is kicking out. Meaning, right now, my main navigation items have the correct style on them now, but my submenu doesn't, my drop menu doesn't. Okay, that's where then if I hover over portfolio here, the submenu, instead of having the class of subnavigation, WordPress is using the class of submenu. So what am I supposed to do now, Jonathan?
Go back to your code.
specifically?
The sub navigation sub menu. Yeah.
Say it. Say open your CSS file, Kirk Hammett.
Open your CSS file. Wow. This is the first time you've actually opened that.
And I then am going to
Change.
right? So if this is where I have that submenu positioned absolutely as a drop menu, and I replace it with submenu. Same thing here, UL subnavigation, replace, UL subnavigation, replace. So any instance where I use that old class name or that class name, I have to change those instances in my CSS file. Does that make sense? So you're going to play this game. Do I change the HTML output, or do I give up trying to get WordPress to adhere to the class names that I wrote in my style sheets? And do I just replace names in my style sheet?
So my question for you.
Hold on.
Okay.
So now, this should work like it used to. And now I should be able to click through these okay? What was your question?
So in the codex, just because I've been kind of hunting here, is there a list of something we can go to and just say, okay, this is what WordPress, like for CSS, for example, the sub, they're going to call sub navigation?
No.
Okay.
You're just going to have to continuously monitor
the inspection.
Yeah, because like, for instance, when it comes to like doing the you are here states and whatnot, okay, you're going to have to see what class names, et cetera, get thrown out.
Okay, so it will always show up in that inspect element,
Yeah.
and then we'll just have to go ahead and change it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes a ton of sense.
We have to go
It's also
and change
scanned.
everything in the
Rear end.
What?
It's also a pain in the rear end because there's going to be a ton of obviously if you build your own, static files, which
Yeah.
you should have, you're going to have a ton of stuff to correct up front.
Possibly.
Most likely.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's all relative, right? What I would say is, yeah, what you guys have to get used to is the WordPress generated class names and IDs that WordPress kicks out. Once you get used to, oh, those are the things that WordPress kicks out, when you were building your template structures, right, or your proto sites or whatever, you're just going to get used to those are the class names and IDs that WordPress uses. So I'm going to use those in my CSS file.
It's like any framework, like in Bootstrap.
Yeah.
You have a set, if you're trying to do a container, it's got to be container this or container
Correct.
that.
Correct.
So it's like, that's essentially.
So this is going to be especially important when it gets into things like your jQuery files. If you are going, so in other words, navigation, LI, menu item has children. Menu item has children is see it right there? Because this is the portfolio navigation item and it has children, it will generate a class name, menu item has children. Does that make sense, Gracie? No?
I'm still trying to figure out how you managed to assign the same CSS properties to your navbar that you put there. Mine's not. I'm just falling behind. I'm trying to.
Yeah, I get it. So if you look up WPNavMenu, this function, depending on what you need to change, right? Depending on what you need to call, it's going to be different for everybody. I needed to make sure that my container was a div tag. I needed to make sure that I had the container ID of navigation. Okay? You may need to use the items wrap. So this is where I didn't use the items wrap, but here the items wrap, UL ID navigation. In other words, here are the items. Here is the wrap. Okay? I had ID navigation items on my UL tag. I didn't put it in here like I have in the example of my lecture because my CSS file didn't access this ID. So because I wasn't doing anything with that ID in my CSS file, right, I left it alone. Does that make sense?
So each one of those things that we call out in the WPNavMenu, like theme location, that's mixed. It just depends on what we have in our navigation.
So this theme location right here,
Yeah.
right, main menu, is equal to the location that we set up, right? And we set this location up in our functions file here, okay? So in other words, if I changed this, just go with me,
That's not going to work because the only thing you have registered is my menu. So.
right, just go with me. Right? So now this has changed. So I would have to assign my main menu to that theme location, right? So what you may find is as you are adding themes or working with new themes, your theme locations for your menus are going to change, okay?
So what's container?
Really wish the control menus worked. This container?
Yeah, yeah, is that for just strictly WordPress? I mean, the items
That refers to this.
to that. Okay, so what if I just have a header class? I don't have a div.
Do you just have UL items and list or UL and list items?
I have header class, snap down, and then I have div class, snap wrapper.
So navbar 1 is your.
Yeah, but then it wasn't working.
Okay. So then
I tried making a navigation here.
so you're going to have to then
Sorry, those are switched out. That's function.
sure. Okay. And then close them.
Okay. And then it should work.
Mhm.
Okay. Do I need to change navigation? Container ID?
To-
Maybe nav one?
Yes, navbar 1.
Thank you.
Should we stop there for today? Is that starting to make sense?
Think about it.
Any questions? Who feels like they learned something?
Learn. Definitely learn.
Okay.
Need to digest.
Who feels like they hate me?
No, never hate you.
Gracie?
I don't hate you. Just frustrated. There's so many questions. I wish that you gave us something to work on as a group so that we could understand. Like we're all working on the same material and we're both typing it in ourselves and visually seeing something and have a functioning piece to use as reference. That'd be great.
What do you mean by that?
Like some of the other classes I've been in, we pretty much just create something to work with together. Each one works on it separately, but we're all typing in the same commands. So that when we're done, we all have a functioning piece to work with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just using your own
Yeah,
HTML
but it's
template
on-
here.
But like with mine,
Yeah.
it was different and there's
Right.
so many different things. Like I wouldn't have known to have done that unless I started last year.
Well, asking me is the right way to go about it. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but it would be less annoying questions.
I don't think so. Yeah, you just have to figure out how yours is built. In other words, right? I have my navigation. So this might be what is confusing you, Gracie. I have my header separate from my navigation system, right? Where your navigation was embedded inside your header,
Yeah, 'cause it is the header.
right? So that's where then, like I said, all we were trying to get was your navigation, DUL, list items, and any subs. So you had two other things wrapped around your navigation that still needed to stay statically.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the disconnect is.
Yeah, that it made sense when you went over that with me. But I just for some reason thought that because it's WordPress and we're learning different new things, I wasn't sure if that needed to be done or
Yeah.
not.
Should we stop?
Yeah.
Sup, James?